situation come up years ago, and there was a man that was warning me. He wanted to know that he was warning me, and so he actually physically sat there and told me he was warning me. He said this. He said, I'm trying to tell you, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what direction you're headed. You're going down a path that's washed out. And I said, explain it to me. I want to know what path I'm going down that's washed out so that I can fix it, grade the road, put a bridge in, or get off the road. I want to know. Tell me. And he said, it's the independent Baptist churches. He said, the Baptist churches are failing people. He said, I've studied them out. They're legalistic. I said, legalistic? That means that we believe that our works are part of our salvation, that we have to follow the law. I don't do that. I live for God because I'm saved, not to be saved. He said, you have to realize something. And this is what he said. I've been down that road. And then he said this. He said, and I'm telling you, I'm standing there waving my arms at you, telling you, you need to get off the road. It's washed out. You're going to go over the edge. And I said, very simply, I don't think I'm on the same road that you're on. I really don't. After listening to you, I don't think I'm on the same road that you're on. Now, the truth is, if the road is washed out, why not go to the very beginning of the road, put up a roadblock, and just direct them toward the other road? Why stay on that washed out road your whole life and try to wave at people yourself? Go to the road, put up a road sign or block the road off, and just go on down the right road. He decided he was going to live on that washed out road and warn everybody.
Amen.
Doesn't sound very fun to me to live on a washed out road. But there was a situation that happened not too long ago where there was a bridge that had, or a road that had washed out, and vehicles unknowingly were going off the road into the water. And there was a man that his vehicle went off the road, and he had no realization until he was in the water that the road was washed out, but it was a little bit too late. And when the divers rescued him, he ended up suing them because they didn't find him fast enough. And that's the mentality of the generation we are in. They didn't find him fast enough. Did they rescue him? Oh yeah. They rescued him. But it wasn't fast enough. And the problem is the situation played out where he had gotten, his vehicle had an air pocket in it. So he had gotten out of his seat and crawled to that part of the vehicle where there was an air pocket. The divers came down, checked his vehicle real quick, didn't see anyone anywhere near where people normally would be. They went and checked the other vehicles in the area, came back to his, checked it again, and saw him and rescued him. But he said they should have found him the first time, and because of that, he had to suffer mental trauma sitting in his vehicle waiting for rescue.
Oh, yeah.
And my thoughts were, if it was that simple, why don't you just open your own door and get out yourself? But then again, I can't swim, so I understand why you wouldn't get out of your own vehicle if you can't swim. That would be me, sitting with that air pocket, hoping that I can get every little last bit of oxygen out of it.
Panic stuff.
There could be panic too.
Panic because you can't open the door underwater in a car. You can go out the window, but you can't open the door. You're not strong enough.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You can once the pressure.
Once the pressure is
If it
on.
ever gets off and you get standing at it, by that time the water is dumping around your
But in the
neck.
movies, they just go out through the trunk.
Yeah, they always do. Oh, take the windshield out.
Let me tell you, the movies aren't always true. Oh.
But he's right, if there's an air pocket, you couldn't have opened the door.
Possibly.
Because the pressure isn't involved.
If you have your Bible, I'm going to warn you about something.
Oh,
In the book of Daniel, chapter 1, going to take a few passages in Daniel, and I'm going to give you a warning.
Don't crawl in a hole with lions.
No, as a matter of fact, I don't even think we're going to get that far.
Stay away from them.
Daniel chapter 1. Had somebody at work ask me, what's the one thing you're scared of? I said, I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out one day. He said, I'm scared of lions. I said, do they have those running around Kansas City? He said, well, no. I said, then why are you scared of lions? I'm not scared of something that's not around me, okay? You can tell me about this Zika virus. Until it gets to Kansas City, I'm not scared of it. You can tell me about Ebola. Until it's in Kansas City, I'm not scared of it. Now, if I hear that it gets to Kansas City, it might be a different story. I might be taking different precautions. But if it's, I'm not scared of lions. Has anybody here been attacked or had a lion in your yard recently? I've had some people telling lies in my yard, but I haven't had an actual lion in my yard. I'm not scared of lions. And are you scared of lions? You are? You've been threatened by them a few times? In Daniel chapter 1, if you know anything about Daniel, Daniel was a slave. He was taken as a captive. He was of the elite of the children of Israel. He was of the princes and of the noblemen. People that had the ability. It's amazing that when they went and took captives, they took people that had the ability to learn. They checked it out. Are you able to actually learn? Can we get through to you? They want to know. In Daniel chapter 1, the Bible says, let's look at verse number 2. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, okay, let's just start at verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, into Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes. Here's the criteria, verse 4. Children, in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning in the tongue of the Chaldeans. Now, I wish that you and I could walk into a schoolroom and be able to determine which child has the abilities like this. But most of our classrooms across the country teach a basic criteria, and they hold all the students to the same standard. And every great once in a while you have a student that just excels because they decide, I'm not just sticking with this, I'm going to do more, I'm going to go higher, I'm going to go above this. Well, then you get into certain private schools where they make themselves have a higher standard than everyone else around. Well, you study the generations years ago, the princes, the higher up echelon of the land, they forced their young people to learn manners and respect, to learn how to stand in public, to learn how to act, to learn and be educated. And the slaves and the servants, they really didn't care about. Schooling was not that important. So you have these young people that actually were made to learn. And then among these people, they went and selected even out of those people that had ability. They didn't even take all of the princes' children and all of those that were in the families of the kings, and they didn't even take all of them. They took only those that they had that ability to learn. It says this, verse 5, and the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. The king says, I'm going to put a 3-year test on you guys. We're going to see in 3 years what qualifications you still have if you can stand before me. 3 years. Now among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall you make me endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us bolts to eat and water to drink. Verse 14, so he considered to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. Verse 17, as for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill and all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. But now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king required of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even into the first year of King Cyrus. I want you to look at a man named Daniel, who he has this personal conviction in his life. He's not going to change, not going to go with what the king required. He has a personal conviction of how he is supposed to live his life. Here's the warning. Beware of who you hang around. Beware of who you hang around. You know why? Because if you start hanging around a guy like Daniel, he might just bring you along.
Amen.
He might just bring you along with him into his lifestyle. Daniel here, he says, I'm going to purpose in my heart. I am not going to take part of this meat and drink. I want to live according to the standards and convictions that have been set before me.
Amen.
And my friends, I want you to test my friends and I. Could you see Shadrach, Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, however you want to call them? Could you see them standing there saying, "We're with Daniel"? Of all the people, these 3 were stuck with Daniel. Oh, I don't think they looked at it that way. But the thing is, I want to put it out there to you. Be careful who you hang around. Because if you start hanging around a person who loves God and has convictions in their life and wants to stand for God, they just might bring you along to a place that you don't think you really are ready for. They might bring you to a place where you have to stand for God because you're with them.
Amen.
What a testimony Daniel had. Daniel takes a stand. Daniel purposes. And these 3 friends are stuck with him under one guy. And Daniel's like, hey, go ahead, test us. The king says, test them for 3 years. Daniel says, go ahead, give us 10 days. You want a 3-year test? Give us 10 days. 10 days. I don't know how many health programs or fitness programs will guarantee 10 days of dieting and living and to be so much, so 10 times better than everybody else around them. 10 times better. Anyone ever heard of a health program or fitness program that guarantees that kind of result in 10 days? Or do they try to keep you on it for a life? Because you have to maintain our program. This is an amazing man, Daniel. And these 3 friends of his just go right along with him.
Amen.
And as you see, let's go to chapter 2. In Daniel chapter 2, verse number 1, in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar, of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams. Now there's two words, Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar, and then there's dreams. Wherewith his spirit was troubled and his sleep brake from him. He couldn't sleep. He had his dreams, he couldn't sleep. Verse 2, then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. The king said to them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream, with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. Hey, if you can't tell me my dream, and I'm not just going to tell you the dream and you tell me the interpretation. I don't even remember my own dream. You tell me my dream and the interpretation, I'll believe you. But if not, I'm going to cut you in pieces. And your house is going to be made a dunghill. It's going to be a place of waste in this nation. They basically told the king, sorry king, you're doing something that no man has ever asked another man. It's not even possible for us to reveal your own dreams to you. It's not possible for any man. And the only God that would do that is a God that, well, that kind of God doesn't even dwell among men. What are they saying? All the gods that we worship, they're handy. We can change and manipulate our own gods. Why? They were their own gods. But the God that could do that, He doesn't really dwell among men like that. I want you now to look down to verse number 12. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain. This one group of men couldn't tell the dream. The king says, kill all the wise men. Verse 13. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is thy decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercy to the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. You see what Daniel just did again? Daniel just made a calculated decision. My God can do this. I know God can. He's taken care of me before. And so he hears that they're going to be killed. And Daniel, the Arioch, the king, the captain of the king's guard, comes to kill the wise men. And Daniel's like, hey, hold on. What are you so quick to kill everybody for? Let me go talk to the king. Can I tell you, Arioch should not have let him go talk to the king? He wasn't supposed to let them go talk to the king. He was supposed to cut their heads off. That was his job. And instead they let Daniel go in and talk to the king. Do you realize that there's 3 men that don't even know all this is going on yet?
Yes.
They don't even have a clue. And Daniel goes in and says, King, hey, let me tell you, King, my God can reveal your dream and the interpretation. Just give me a little bit of time. Let me talk to God. Let God reveal it to me, and we'll sort it all out. Just give us time. The king gives him time. Daniel goes back. He says, hey guys, I got something to tell you. I just went and told the king that God was going to reveal his dream to me, and that God was going to tell me the dream and the interpretation, and we don't have much time before they come and kill us. So guys, why don't you just pray with me about it?
Amen.
Daniel, what kind of friend are you? Every time something goes wrong, you're in the lead, going to the king saying, let's do this thing. Where was Daniel? Be careful who you hang around. Be careful who you hang around. You hang around someone that has a testimony to walk with God, someone that says, I can get a hold of God, they might get you to start praying with them. And they might get you to start seeing answers to prayer. Be careful, I'm warning you. I'm warning you. They might get you to start seeing answers to prayer. They might get you to stop doing things on your own, and they might get you actually to talking to God. Let me warn you. Be careful about hanging around a guy like Daniel. You say, preacher, are you being serious? I'm actually not being serious. I'm actually the other side. It's sort of like, what is that called? When they reverse psychology, okay? But the thing is, you look at it. Daniel says, hey guys, I'm not going to eat this. And then he goes to the man that's in charge. Hey, why don't you test me and my buddies? We're not going to eat that. Okay. And the decree comes out, kill all the wise men. Daniel goes to the king. King, I'm going to get an answer for you. But guys, you've got to pray with me, because here's what I told the king. I told him that God was going to answer a prayer and reveal this. You guys got to pray with me. If you hang around somebody that has convictions, you might start getting those same convictions. You hang around somebody that has a walk with God, that prays and gets answers from God, you might just start getting your own walk with God and start getting answers from God. Now here's where I said that we might not get to Daniel in the lion's den. Because here's where it gets difficult. In Daniel chapter 3. You see, Daniel does go into the lion's den, but that's later on. These three friends who had been now hanging around with Daniel, and they've seen Daniel stand up for right, and they've seen Daniel get answers to prayers, and they've been part of it, so they're getting answers to prayers. Daniel doesn't go into the lion's den next as an example to them. Chapter 3, you have the story. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar gives all these demands. It says in verse 2, that Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Verse 5 says that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Whoso falleth not down and worship it, shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. So you have this king setting up this image, and he requires everybody that is in any leadership position just about to stand there and wait for the music to start, and as the music starts, bow and worship. And if you read this story, you'll find somebody doesn't get in trouble at this story. Daniel doesn't. Realize Daniel wasn't there? You realize Daniel wasn't present to say, guys, I'm going to stand here because I'm not bowing. Daniel's got a special position now in the kingdom. He actually sits in the king's gate. Everybody goes through him. He doesn't leave the king's gate. At this point, that's his duty. He's sort of like the security guard of the kingdom. And security doesn't let down when there's a party going on. And this Nebuchadnezzar sets up a party to worship his own image, his own false god. And everybody's out there, and these three friends are standing together in this crowd of people, and Daniel's not with them to make a decision for them. Guys, we can't worship this. All of a sudden the news comes back. We've got three men that when the music started, did not bow. Verse 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury. You talk about a madman. angry, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, you got to think the voice with an angry, mad king. You got to think the voice as he says, is it true? Or did he say, is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Is that how an angry king would sound? I don't think so. Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? And he tells them, now ye be ready, at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said unto the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, can Daniel come and speak for us? That is not what it said. Can I tell you this? They hung around a man who had a walk with God. They hung around a man who had convictions in his life, personal standards. He had a walk with God and a lifestyle that he was not going to compromise when the world came down and said, you have to do it our way. Can I tell you this? Daniel, if you study it out, he had to be a pretty easygoing guy, because he actually worked alongside of him in the kingdom. They didn't off with his head because he wasn't just out to make enemies. But when it came to convictions, he stood for righteousness.
Amen.
When he was not there, these friends had spent enough time with Daniel that they were able to say, verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Daniel says this, give us 10 days to prove this. Give us 10 days to prove that we can live according to this and fare better. Daniel goes to the king, give us a little bit more time, and I will promise you that our God will reveal it.
Right.
These three men are now saying, we don't even need any time on this one, king.
Amen.
We don't need the 10 days. We don't need a little bit of time to pray about it. We're not careful to answer you, O king. We're going to stand firm right where we stand. And we're going to follow the God that we follow. And he's going to protect us. He's going to save us. But if he doesn't, we're still not doing it your way. The truth is, if God didn't save them from the fiery furnace, they couldn't ever do it the king's way. That is the truth. King, if God doesn't save us, we are not going to bow. That's the truth. Because if God doesn't save you, you don't have the ability to bow anymore. You're dead.
Yeah.
There's no more ability. But I like that when they said, we're not careful to answer you, O king. We don't need time. We don't need a second chance. We're going to stand for right. Of course, you know the story. How that God rescued those three men, personally saved them in the fire, and brought them out.
Right.
The Bible has many verses on the peace of God. The Bible has many verses on the peace of God. Can I tell you this over and over? I just want to look at one. I like this one in Isaiah chapter 26. You may know it. Isaiah chapter 26. The Bible says in Isaiah chapter 26 verse 1, in that day shall this song be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. Salvation will God appoint for walls and bulwarks. Open ye the gates that the righteous nation which keepeth the truth may enter in. Then I want you to look at verse 3. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee.
Amen.
Can I tell you, these three young men had decided to put their faith and trust in Jesus Christ, letting God be God. They said, we're not careful to answer you. We don't need any more time. We're willing to die for the cause of what we believe,
Amen.
for the convictions that we have. I don't know about you, what you've done in your life, but if you've ever been around a group of young people, growing up, you get around them, there seems to be one or two that have a little bit of sway, a little bit of pull in the group. Or maybe it's just you and another friend, and they seem to have a little bit of an ability to get you to do things. And on your own, there's some things that you would have never ever thought of doing in your life. But with them and their kind suggestions, you just go confidently with them and join them in their endeavor. We had a little riot one time. There was a church activity that I was there for, and I was supposed to be supervising it. And if you wanted to know the title of it, I'd call it Chaos. They had a mountain about this tall, and I don't know, maybe from there to about here of hay. A big old pile of hay. And they had put, I believe they said about $150 in change throughout that hay pile. And they surrounded that hay pile with teenagers from the inner city, Kansas City. And I, at the age of about 19 or 20, you can only imagine what I looked like then. Looked like a baby-faced kid, skinny old thing. I'm out there telling all these teenagers, stay back, don't touch it, wait for the... Can I tell you what? As soon as the first teenager moved, that entire pile just went into oblivion. They didn't wait for any signal. All they needed was somebody to start it. And not one single one stood back and said, I'm going to wait until I'm told to start, like they said. Not one. The entire group of teenagers piled on them. And then it became a literal fist fight in that pile. And we had to start pulling them off of each other. That's why I say it's chaos. I don't recommend that activity. Not one stood there and said, I'm going to wait until I'm told to go. Not one. It's so easy when you see others doing it to just go right along with them because they're doing it too. Well, that goes the same when you start hanging around somebody that has a walk with God, somebody that has a relationship with God, somebody that loves God is willing to talk. That goes the same way. You start hanging around them, it becomes easier and easier. I'm going to warn you. You start going to church with somebody that has a walk with God. You start fellowshipping with somebody that has a walk with God. You start sitting by them. You start talking to them throughout the week. You start making that person your friend. Be careful. They might get you to have a walk with God too. And there might just be a piece about it that you're comfortable with. You might actually get comfortable with doing the things of God. Just want to warn you. Be careful who you hang around. You might end up living for God. Putting Him first. Letting Him lead and guide. You might actually start praying more. Reading your Bible. You might actually start doing something more for God than you thought. Man, I don't have time for all that. And then a couple weeks later, wow, I didn't realize I had time for all that. Look what I've accomplished. Look what the Lord has allowed me to see. You might realize that you had a friend that actually drug you along into doing something right. So I just want to warn you. If somebody around you tries to convince you to read your Bible and pray, do right, you keep hanging around them, they might actually convince you to do it.
Yep.
They might actually do that. Just warn them. Now, as a disclaimer, I pray that that's who you find as a friend. I pray that you will find somebody in your life. I pray that the church can be that to each other. That we can have people like Daniel. I am being asked on a regular basis by people, hey, what do you think about this event? Do you think this is a sign of the end times? And I'll tell them this. I don't know what event you're talking about because I haven't heard about it yet. But anything could be a sign of the end times.
Right.
Anything could right now. But here's the question. When is your personal end time? When is your personal end time? If you're looking at the destruction of the world, chaos, when is your personal life going to end? The world has questions. They do. We ought to be at peace with our Savior and content to share the Word of God, content to live for God.
Amen.
Let me just encourage you. With all that being said tonight, I'm not actually trying to warn you against. Unless that's something you really don't want to do. If it's something you I don't really want to do something. That's up to you. But if you do, be careful. You might get around with Daniel. Someone who just keeps encouraging you. Or they might, just like Daniel, set you up where you have no choice but to go along with them. You're there. I like Daniel.
Amen.
Yeah, Daniel went to the lion's den.
That's right.
These three men were the example to Daniel. They were. And as you study it out, these three men are constant friends of Daniel for years to come. They learned who to hang around. And they became men of God themselves. Whether or not they were prior to that, if they weren't, because of who they hung around Daniel, he sure taught them some lessons with such an example. Either that or Daniel just said, hey, these three guys, I could be a good friend with them. They're good friends. They're good Christians. We're going to stick together. Hang around with God with you. Good friends. People that will encourage you in the Lord. Hang around with them. See where it might take you all. See how far it might go. See who might be encouraged because of your lifestyle. Heavenly Father, I do thank you for the people that have been an influence in my life. And I'm not just referring to when I was a child. Lord, even up to this very present moment, I have friends that I know will help me, will guide me, and will go with me. If there's a trial in life, they'll be there for me, to encourage me, to pray for me. Lord, we have a man in the Bible, a testimony of a man named Daniel, who was so faithful that he reached one of the highest levels in the kingdom that he had no right being in, except for you. Thank you for the testimony of Daniel. Lord, may we be a friend like Daniel, and may we have friends like Daniel, that we can encourage others and they can encourage us to stand for conviction, stand for biblical principles and beliefs, to have a walk with God, a relationship with God, that we can tell people, just hold on, I'll get an answer for you. Or when trouble and trials come, that we'll just stand and say, I don't need any more time. I'm willing to stand and die for my convictions and beliefs. Lord, may we be like these men. May we have good friends in our life like Daniel, that we can have a walk with God with. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you for all you teach us in the Word of God. May we be faithful. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.